there's a lot of intentionality here. There is a sense of we're bringing a group of students in here to have this experience. When we are in there, and that's me included, there's a sense of presence, being present. All of our phones are switched off. Time stops. Then there's a sense of the presence of other. And then there's something coming from beneath, there's something coming from the earth. There's also the sense of something above us. You know, when in Ireland the clouds are very low lying. There's a sense of the stone. You've got all the elements there. And it feels like everything is intertwined, everything is working together. So if we talk about consciousness, that everything is conscious. It's not just this mind body, this something looking out. It's everything, absolutely everything.
Hey, welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. Yeah, it's me again. I'm Bernie Beitman or Bernard Beitman, or since we're talking to somebody from the British Isles, I'm also Bernard. And we're going to talk about an increasingly important set of concepts, the connection between meaningful coincidences and consciousness education or transpersonal education for children. Our guest today has been teaching transpersonal ideas and experiences to children for quite a while and has entered into a consciousness education program started by Joan Walton and Waterman, and she will tell us about her aspects, her ways of thinking about Laurel Waterman, her ways of thinking about these concepts of consciousness education, because I'm not sure what that means. Transpersonal we will do, and Adi will tell us about how she does that with kids. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing to be able to be talking about, that she is doing that kind of work. So here's Adi. Here's Adi Vickers. She's in Ireland, where they're going to have a big festival near where she is tomorrow, which is a big deal going on in her life for various other reasons. She teaches at the Asana International School in County Kerry in Ireland, and in 1993 it was known as the land of scholar tours and a Asana School of English. Asana specializes in holistic and transformative education for children. She was trained as a Rogerian counselor. Carl Rogers, anybody remember Carl Rogers? A neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, again from the old days, and a hypnotherapist. Adi has been an experienced educator in Ireland, Italy, Spain, Laos, and India, working in state, private, and international schools between 1990 and 2025. She's quite a teaching experience. She set up and delivered a teacher training program for the Indian NGO Food For Life for 4 years, 2014 to 2018. She delivered an online integrative practice for heart-centered teachers program for facilitators and educators at Ireland's first democratic school. This was part of the Alef Trust Consciousness Community Project begun in 2021. She co-founded an educational NGO and school in India, and that's the most remarkable place that she has gone. We'll hear more about it, called A Place for Us. The initial program focuses on marginalized young people in Nimka, India, and has been running since March of 2023. Her current PhD research is focused on transpersonal approaches to second-level education. Now, that's a lot of teaching experience you got there, Adi. And we want to be able to benefit our audience from that deep experience, because you're doing it mostly with teenagers and have been doing it for quite a while. And to be able to get teenagers tuned in to transpersonal and start thinking about what consciousness might mean is a remarkable idea that you are bringing to the world. So, would you start off by telling us something about how meaningful coincidences got you into transpersonal and then consciousness education?
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thanks a lot, Bernard, or Bernard, as we say, and
Bernard. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, thanks for inviting me to talk about education, because this is what I'm really passionate about.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it's a long story. There were a few funny coincidences. Way back when I had just finished college, I decided with my fiance, who would later become my husband, we wanted to travel. We wanted to visit Europe, and Ireland was very isolated in those days. You know, travel was very expensive. So we decided to do a TEFL course, which is teaching English as a foreign language. And the whole idea was to, to get this qualification and then go off and work in other European countries. So I remember the day before leaving Ireland. The plan, I have to say, was to go and work in Spain. There was going to be an interview in London, and then if we were successful, we would get this job in Spain. So I was in the local bookshop, and I decided to buy a little Spanish phrase book. And for some reason, I decided to buy an Italian one as well, for no reason. And so we set off, went to London the following day, went for the interview. It was actually a group interview. And they told us that we were successful and that the job in Spain would start in 6 months' time. And we were hugely disappointed because we had left Ireland with our backpack and our guitar and all of our books. And we said, is there no possibility of starting work earlier? And they said, well, you can, but you'll have to go to Italy on Monday. And this was Friday. So there you go. I had my Italian phrase book ready. So that was one funny coincidence. So how did we go from teaching English to moving into holistic education? Well, the next significant moment was a couple of years later. We were by now teaching English to the Italian police. We were moving all over the country. We had a really nice contract doing that until I became pregnant. And I really wanted to have a natural home birth, which was impossible in Italy back then. We're talking a long time ago. So we decided to move back to Ireland temporarily. And we joined a program. I think it was a tourism program. It was really just to pass the time during these months of pregnancy. And the plan was to have the baby in Ireland and then go back to Italy. And I remember that before that, one of my students had suggested, my adult students, because we were teaching adults, obviously the police and other adults in those early years, had suggested, why don't you take us to Ireland, show us around the country, and then teach us some English at the same time? And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but didn't think anything more about it until in the middle of this tourism program, they told us that we'd have to present a project, and it had to be a business project based on tourism. So we were thinking, what would we do? No idea, until I remembered this suggestion. And I thought, okay, let's build a project around this. So we decided to go exploring Ireland as tourists. We got our backpacks again and went traveling around. I think I was probably 7 or 8 months pregnant at this point. And the whole idea was to find out if Ireland was a friendly country for tourists. And we came to the conclusion that it was. So we thought, okay, we'll present this project about bringing adults maybe from Spain and Italy and showing them around the country while teaching them English. And we presented it and we thought, that's great. We got our certificate and we planned to go back to Italy to work again, which is what we did. Strangely, within a year of presenting that project, we started doing this. People started asking us if we would bring them to Ireland during the summer holidays. And we brought 3 adult students in June of that year, I think, or July, and maybe 4 students in August. And that was back in 1993. And we had no intention of setting up a school, but every year we ended up with more students every summer. And eventually, I won't go into the story, we ended up teaching teenagers as well. But I want to backtrack a little bit, because after doing this for a couple of years, I started noticing a few things. And remember, we were working with adults at the time, not teenagers. So our students always stayed with host families. And on one occasion, I got a phone call from the host who was hosting our Italian adult student, saying that every evening at 6 o'clock, a man would call frantically looking for this woman called, I think, Eleonora was her name. And he didn't really speak English, and the host mother didn't speak Italian. So she asked me to intervene, because he would call and call and call, and this young woman didn't want to pick up the call. Anyway, long story short, it turns out that they had been on the altar, and at the last moment she had jilted him and signed up for our program in Ireland. So it was a kind of way of escaping the imminent marriage. At the same time, another student one day, she was in her 50s, she came to me after class saying that she felt, her sister had committed suicide months earlier, and that she herself was feeling suicidal. And I remember back in the days, we had these big directories called the Golden Pages. And I remember with shaking hands trying to find the number of the Samaritans. They are a voluntary group who you can call if you're feeling depressed or suicidal. And 2 other things happened all in the space of a week. And I remember thinking, I'm not qualified enough, I'm not trained enough to do this job. I need something else. I need something else, but I didn't know what it was. Anyway, a day later, I saw a poster advertising a course in counseling, and I signed up, and I studied counseling for 2 years. Around the same time, maybe again, if not a week, maybe within a month, we went to a teacher training conference in Dublin. We were based in Dublin at that time. And I met a teacher trainer who, in the space of, I'd say, 2 or 3 minutes, completely revolutionized my life, because he talked about the importance of not teaching a particular curriculum or syllabus or lesson plan, but being present with who's in the room. And this resonated so deeply that I went back home and I put away all of our textbooks, and I started working from this place of presence. A couple of years later, I had all of the counseling behind me. And at the same time, people started sending teenagers to us. That's another coincidence, but we probably don't have time for that. So this was the beginning of working in a holistic way, of recognizing that there are lots of different ways of learning, lots of different learning styles. The NLP helped with that, I have to say. And over the years, we began to specialize in working with teenagers and young people. So that's really how we started off working holistically. And while years ago we were an English language school, we then became an English medium school. So we were bringing in yoga, mindfulness practice. For example, we teach the students how to grow their own food. We teach them how the political system works. We get them learning, basic research skills with local people in the community. We get involved in community projects, cleaning the local beach, cleaning parks, so that we're working with the idea of learning about yourself, learning to connect with other, and learning to connect with the place that we're in right now, which is really important, as so many young people are glued to their mobile phones. So that was all fine until one day it dawned on me that a school could be holistic. If you walk into our school, you'll see a piano, a guitar, lots of art materials around the place. You'll see the polytunnel in the garden. But you could still work in a mechanistic way if you as a teacher or facilitator are not working from this place of presence. And that really opened me up to the whole transpersonal side of things, something that is bigger than me, the person, you, the person, or even we, a group of people, something bigger. And I joined first of all, I joined a master's program with Alef Trust in the UK. I did a master's in transpersonal psychology, and I did a research project based on education. And it was during the COVID years. So I focused on heart-centered teachers, teachers who work from this place of presence and how they were managing to transfer that online. And more recently, I've joined the PhD program, and this time it's about bringing transpersonal approaches to second level schools. And, we're starting off in our own school because it's quite easy to do that. We have everything in place to be able to carry out the research. But my dream is to be able to bring this more into the mainstream so that it's accessible to all young people, not just people who can.
And what is this that you want to
What is
bring?
this?
What is
Well,
this?
this is where it gets difficult to talk about. So with young people and children, because later on I'll talk about India, where we're working with not just teenagers, but children as well, you can't really talk about it explicitly, overtly. It's something that has to be experienced.
Something to experience. And what you're doing is setting up a context in which what you can't articulate very well can be experienced. And it has to be experienced in the present. It's got to be experienced with each other. And it's got to be experienced as part of a group consciousness that perhaps expands beyond the group.
Exactly. And so one of the things I feel, one of the elements that is really helpful in this is that we're working in, I would say, a very nature-based way. We're in a beautiful part of Ireland. We're very lucky, blessed to be in this place. And a lot of our activities are out in nature. And I often laugh because you can ask the teenagers to put away their phones, but there's nothing that helps us do this more than the Irish weather. It rains a lot here. So, the young people are trying to protect their phones, so they put their phones away. And we're out in the rain. And, we've seen some amazing moments where they were saying, why do we have to walk in the rain? And next minute, a rainbow appears. And suddenly they're having this golden moment, what I would call transformative moment, when they start really connecting with nature. So it's not subject to object, but it's a feeling that we are nature. And that can only be experienced, and we can't orchestrate it. I can have this plan in my head. I would love my young people to experience this, but there's a certain amount of surrender that goes with working in this way. The ingredients are there. For example, we use a lot of creativity. We use a lot of art. We bring a lot of art into our work. We're working with Celtic mythology. That's been a wonderful instrument.
Good. Celtic mythology. Oh, that's
wonderful mythology. Wonderful, because, so what we can do is we can tell a very simple story. And in Ireland, as you can probably gather, we're great storytellers. We talk all the time. So, we tell
you're giving me that impression, yes. And you got these little creatures wandering around there in the forest too. Do you ever see any of those leprechauns? Do you ever see any of them?
I can't say I've seen a leprechaun, but we can certainly, and I would be quite kinesthetic, so I'm not visual, but I can certainly feel things. Yeah.
Well,
definitely.
let's do that kinesthetic thing, because you're the teacher, and the way in which you process what we ever call reality will influence the children that you're dealing with. So you become a role model. And when you say you're kinesthetic and not so visual, I understand that because I have that too. I like to move it and feel it, and it can feel energy around you, around me, around from other people, and that's what I assume you're able to do, and that you transfer that ability to the children, to the teenagers, where they begin to learn that you have energy fields, that they have your energy, they can they can feel your energy field. You're just so enthusiastic. It just goes from your heart out into what's around you. And you get out in nature where there's not much to distract, and they're feeling you among the trees and among the rainbows and among other animals that show up in the little leprechauns that maybe you don't see, but some other people might be able to see them. Oh, there's one on your shoulder. Yes, that's smiling at you. Oh, you didn't see that. They're all all these little things going on out there. And because you're tuned in and vibrating with the forest yourself, you become a resonating structure, I'll say, within the group. I'm imagining this, but that's what you do, and they begin to become more coherent with you, and with you, with the forest, and the forest with you, and you. That's what I ran out of words.
But I would say that it's something that's co-creative. I don't really think it's about me at all.
Oh,
Uh,
this is what I'm trying to describe. It's
yeah, it's
co-creative, and it's
it's not
not
about the
about
person.
whoever you are anyway. And that becomes part of a trouble. If you're teaching transpersonal, you don't know who you are either, but you do have some idea.
Yeah,
I believe you got a body in there, it looks like it, and you got a mouth and it goes like that, and you got to feed it, and there's people you relate to. So I'd like to suggest there is a you somewhere in there. There also is very much a not you that blends, and I think that I say that very clearly here because I think it's important to recognize we are both our own person, and at the same time, or in some kind of oscillation between our merging with our environment, whatever that might be.
exactly, exactly. And I think, going back to the kinesthetic thing, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel a big, component in all of this, for educators is to be authentic. And I feel that a lot of students who maybe back in their own schools, back in more mainstream schools, have suffered a lot because they've been asked to sit at the desk for 5 or 6 hours and not move. So even just being authentic and saying, well, I need to move. So if I need to move, you need to move as well. So going back to, the more human level, just recognizing that we're all expressing this in different ways, and it's fine to do that. And then, as you say, going into sort of the more deeper aspects, that field that we are creating together, and we're creating it with nature. There is no question about it. I mean, I've seen it over, I mean, we started this in 1993, and every year I think that awareness deepens the role that nature plays in all of this, how it transforms people, even if the school wasn't there, we weren't there, the teachers, the place itself is offering something, and it's inviting teachers, facilitators, and the students to almost to play with it, to create with it. So it feels to me that everything is always new. It's not like, oh, I've been doing this for years and years, whatever, we're into our 33rd year, and I can predict what's going to happen next. There's no way. Every single day is different because of, as you say, the people in the room, the people in the field itself, which is changing over time. And one of the things that we've been working on as a group is the school that we have, let's say, that we're working in. We took over the school about, I'd say, 6 or 7 years ago. Before that, it was a primary school. It was run by quite a strict religious order. And some of the local people who are my age, it was a boys' school, have memories of being locked in the cupboards. So when we talk about, other beings and other presences, the building itself and the land around it are full of not always positive energies. And so part of the work has been clearing, cleaning, and nurturing that space so that it can become harmonious and joyful. So there's so much to holistic or transpersonal or
Yeah,
consciousness,
there's so much.
education. So
There's so
many.
much. There's so
Yeah,
much, but
so much.
there is a lot. But it ends up being this word authentic, which is again being used too much now, so that it becomes twisted. To be authentic, I like to call it, and it'll change too. Other people have different names, but your energy signature, that you have a particular vibration inside of you that's or part of you that is the you that you want to be able to keep getting in touch with. And what you have quickly gone over, and I'm going to emphasize it, is that when you get in touch with that energy signature, it's kind of like a fingerprint. It's yours. It's your particular one. It's not stable. Yeah, and that's what you were trying to be able to tell us. Something. Well, now I'm authentic. You don't get there. It's fun to be able to notice that Carl Jung, who talked so much about individuation, becoming becoming your true self with a capital S, was never fully individuated. And you have to know that. It's nice to have the guy who invented the term saying, I never got there, because there's no there. There is the continuing evolution of your own sense of self, which gets expanded and more harmonic. But it's still something of yours that keeps changing. And you are encouraging people to continue to find that authentic vibration in you, and then continue to explore it, express it. And how better to do it than with other people, being in the presence of other people and vibrating with them, and then getting out in nature. And nature, I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but we got some nice trees around here.
Yeah.
Do you get your students? I get you or your students to be able to have conversations of some point with some of the plants and some of the trees there.
Yeah, I guess not in such a, I suppose, a direct way. What we do is we have a number of stone circles. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Describe them, please.
Yeah, so basically it's I guess it's a circle made of stones that have been there, in the landscape for centuries.
Celtic.
Celtic, yeah. And there's lots of speculation as to what their function was. So I feel them as places of healing. So one of the things I do with students is to take them into the ring forts and to let them experience what it is we're talking about. So I tell them a story of the original stones that were there. There were 7 stones. One was in the center, and it's known as the headstone. And then other stones are corresponding to different parts of the body. A little bit like the Indian chakra system, very similar, which is amazing when you think, how far Ireland is from India. And then we just experience being in the circle for up to an hour and a half. And we do a kind of a meditation, and it's all very easy for them to accept, because not all of our students are used to meditating. Many of them have no experience, so it might be the first time in Ireland that they experience this. So we kind of present it to them as something you can do in Ireland in the ring fort, rather than talking about it the way we're talking about it now. And often we get them holding hands, so feeling their feet on the ground in this ancient place. And before they enter, we talk about liminal spaces, because the Celtic people loved liminality. Halloween, Samhain in the Irish language, was all about that space between darkness and light, between life and death. And I tell them stories about what we did in Ireland when we were children, preparing an extra knife and fork or glass or plate for, a dead relative, and how we were scared, and happy at the same time, that mixture of emotions. And so before we enter the ring fort, I choose two students to be custodians of the space, and their role is to greet every student as they step in to the space, check that their phones are switched off, and we talk about, what we do when we get on an airplane. We put on our seatbelt and we switch our phones off or put them on airplane mode. So I say it's a similar type of thing because we don't want to disturb, like on the plane, we don't want to disturb the navigational devices of the pilots. But in this ancient sacred space, we don't want to disturb what has been there for centuries. So obviously they're very curious and maybe a little bit surprised at the beginning. But by the end of let's call it a workshop in the ring fort, we end it by singing together. So we hold a chord. So we have one group singing do, and then another group singing mi, and the other singing so, and we hold it together while closing our eyes, checking in with the body, checking that every cell in our body is dancing and alive. And if we're feeling really good, then we can send it outwards to maybe people back at home, in our various countries, places in the world that need a little bit of extra help, while being present, with the hands on either side of them, the people. So again, it's self, other, and place, and beyond all of it, beyond the individual, beyond the group, beyond the particular place we're in, so that we're almost, sensing into the cosmos itself. But obviously, I don't say that. We don't say that. We just
You don't say
experience.
that, and you can be stepping into the cosmos. And when I hear you talking about their consciousness going out, um, as a group consciousness, that you're describing for first a group consciousness. And I think it's very, very important for our viewers and our listeners to recognize that you have gotten through all your coincidences and things happening, living in Ireland with the Celtics and whoever we know, those other little leprechauns and liminal spaces in between that Ireland is anyway. I mean, what a name for a place, Ireland, angry land. I mean, it's a lot of turmoil. It's right there on that little island that you live on, and the turmoil gets you places. And what you do is you walk into the chakra-like stone circle, and you walk into it. And would you please describe just you 80, where you are in your life now? Walking into the stone circle yourself, just you. Please try to tell us as best you can what the experience is like getting on that airplane that is the circle, that is the energy, that is the conveyor, that is the connector, much like an airplane does. Tell us what it's like when Adi Vickers walks into a stone circle.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back to what you said about something being evolutionary. Um, what I would say is that I feel expanded, expansive. It's very tangible, but I've been doing this for a very long time, and I can say that it's deepening. It's something that is changing. So the first time I went into this particular stone fort, I would have felt something. I mean, I have to say I felt something right from the start, but I'm quite sensitive to places and spaces. But I have to say that now it feels like the place itself, because another thing I want to talk about is intention, because there is intention behind this. Bringing students in there, it's not something I did 30 years ago. This has been a lot more recent. Maybe I've been doing it for 10 or 15 years. I had done it with groups of friends before, with adults, but not with students. And I would say that now there's a lot of intentionality here. There is a sense of, we're bringing a group of students in here to have this experience. when we are in there, and that's me included, there's a sense of presence, being present. All of our phones are switched off, time stops. Then there's a sense of the presence of other. And then there's something coming from beneath, there's something coming from the earth. There's also the sense of something above us. You know, when in Ireland the clouds are very low lying, there's a sense of the stone. You've got all the elements there. And it feels like everything is intertwined, everything is working together. It's so if we talk about consciousness, that everything is conscious. It's not just this mind body, this something looking out. It's everything, absolutely everything, everyone and everything in that space and beyond, because there's also the sky, there's also what's outside of that, because I didn't explain this, but in the stone circle, there's an outer circle and there's an inner circle. So we're moving from outside of the whole circle into the inner circle. And then we do our singing and we do our practice in that inner circle, which is where the original stones were. So I would say that it's, for me, it's very, very tangible. So,
Yeah, it's
you know,
It's
yeah.
kinesthetic wise, again, it's hard to put the names on it, but you can feel it, and that's what you're talking about. And then again, it's the expanded consciousness that you're part of something greater, and the students can also feel part of something. Uh, but something else you said a little earlier that I think is so true, and we got to pay attention to, is that nature wants to play with us, and I mean, I walk through the forest, and these trees have these funny branches, and I think they're just clowns trying to get a laugh out of me sometimes. But the way they do stuff, and you can look at it from different angles. You know, sometimes I could see a face on a trunk, and the face starts changing and it's making different faces on the trunk, and then they say, "Oh, I'm seeing a face on the trunk," and then it goes back to being a trunk. I can just see the lines in it. There's a kind of playfulness that they they like to do, and I refer to this to nature as Gaia, uh, as a way of giving nature more of a personality, a consciousness, and that there are elements that want to interact with us. They like interacting with us. Could you tell us what that experience is like for you and your students?
Yeah, there's a sense of yeah. Okay, so in Ireland the weather isn't particularly good. It's been quite, especially in July, it can be quite misty. Um, and there have been more than a few occasions when we've been inside the circle, and we've been in there maybe for an hour and 15 minutes, and we get ready to sing. We've been talking about breathing effectively so that we can sustain this note together for a couple of minutes. And often when we've done it, the sun has appeared. And the students, and they range in age from maybe 12 or 13 up to 18, 19 and older. And they go, oh my, this works, this works. So, yeah, these are,
Yeah.
or other times, other tourists come to visit while we're inside the inner circle. And often I'm quite spontaneous. So I'll say, do you want to come and join us? And more often than not, people will come in. And who knows for what reason they join us in that moment and they bring something to it. So you've got the elements adding to it, and you've got, let's call them random people coming in who we've never met before. And they join in, they hold hands, they close their eyes, they meditate, and then they sing with us. And then sometimes we might hug each other, and then we all go our separate ways. But it feels magical at
Yeah,
times.
that's magical. I want to go back to the sun appearing, because I was singing to some trees one time, and it was misty, and then the sun shines on me like a spotlight that I'm singing on stage. So it's doing that. And then another time I'm like singing like this, and I put my hands out like this as a part of dramatic thing. I put my hands out farther, and then a leaf hits me right when I finish the song in the hand. And those are the kinds of those are the kinds of experiences that I am trying to encourage you to tell us about. It's not so much about other people joining, which of course makes a difference and they get into it, but for the actual students and for you to interact with Gaia in its various forms, in her various forms, to be able to have an interaction that you know is an interaction, like the sun coming out, like the leaf in my hands. Those are what I'm asking you to tell us about.
Yeah. There's so many. There's so many.
Yeah.
I guess it's mostly the sun because it's something that's such a, the sun when it appears is such a celebration in Ireland, and uh, it's just the moment that we finish singing or the moment we start to sing together, the sun appears, and it's almost like the sun is supporting me. You know, it's almost like validating everything we're doing, and then the students start to trust the process more. And they might go away, and I hear them talking about it afterwards. And they say, wow, did you see what happened? Did you see the way the sun came out when we did that? And so, yeah, it just feels very magical.
It is not magical after we start doing it for a while. It's magical. Magic is a way of saying we don't know the science behind it yet. Uh,
Okay.
there's uh, there's something going on here with the energy and the circle and the inner circle.
Mm.
And I love mist anyway. I was in Seattle, Washington for a long time. It rains most of the time, but it's different levels of gray. So you get different names, perhaps, of different kinds of gray. So you probably have something like that in Ireland. I really like that. Uh, but breaking the sun breaking through like that for many people is a huge thing. So for you and the students, the sun is a major player in your authentic stone energy working, playing out there in the forest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I just there's something symbolic about it too, which is a deeper meaning of that. It comes through at a place where the sun isn't around that much. So, and the sun is supporting you, is what you felt.
That, that's what it feels like. Um, but of course, that's, you know, that's again going back into the subject object mode. There's an AD and there's a sun. You know, that's one way of putting it, but often it just feels it's all the same thing, you know, because we have had an intense moment together. We are, and you know, I will often say to students, because they come here on 2 or 3 week programs, and I often say, because some of them can be, you know, if they're not used to meditating or holding hands or standing in a circle, you know, they start giggling, they feel quite nervous. And I'll often say, you know, we're all here together. We will never be in this space together again, ever. Even if some of you come back next year, the group will be different. Something will be different. And when we say that, when we acknowledge that things are changing and this moment is unique and special, they really feel that. They feel it. And everybody goes quiet. And the sacred, what I call the sacred, appears in that silence. And then the magic, well, let's call it something
Well,
else, but
let's call it
whatever it is,
magic. Yeah.
yeah,
We'll call
it
it magic's
happens.
good. Yeah.
We're holding hands, eyes closed, checking in with the body, feeling our feet below us, feeling the elements, feeling the wind, it's quite windy here as well, feeling the mist, the rain, and then starting to sing together. And often what I'll do is to, because not everybody is used to singing. So I'll have to go around the circle, starting them off, going to the next group and the third group, and then making sure that the sound is loud enough. So I'll spend some time circling, and sometimes I'll go into the center and then sing the highest note. And the idea is to sustain it for as long as we can, because in that, creating that note, that sound together, we are present. We are completely present with ourselves, our bodies, the place we're in, with each other, with all of it. And it's priceless. I mean, it might only last a few moments, but it might be the only time people have been truly connected with themselves that day, or even that week or that month, because we're noticing, working with young people, and no matter where we're working, we're noticing more disconnection, that disconnection with self. For a lot of people, a lot of young people, it isn't there. That connection isn't there anymore. And then if you're not connected with yourself, how can you connect with the person beside you? How can you connect with the place you're in? I mean, everybody is somewhere else all the time, especially with our mobile devices. You can be everywhere, anywhere, nowhere, ultimately nowhere. And one thing the idea, and again, not with words, but through our actions as facilitators, is what the idea I try to convey is, if I am with you right now, but at the same time, I'm wondering what's going on over there. I'm thinking about what I'm having for my dinner, or the 20,000 messages I haven't checked on my phone. I'm not really with you. I'm fragmented. And if I'm fragmented, I'm going to feel tired. I'm not going to experience full energy. Whereas if I can just be here right now and experience this as one moment, just this, then I am whole. And from that wholeness, energy is infinite. And this is something that I really want to share with other educators. A lot of teachers are burnt out. It's not an easy time to be teaching. We hear that from teachers all over the world. I work with a lot of teachers. And all I can say is, if you work from that place of presence and let everything else go, and it's not easy, because a lot of teachers in mainstream schools have the pressure of exams and syllabi, curricula, etc. But in as much as we can, just to be here right now, that energy that is so needed for us and for our students will be accessible, because it's like once we're present, everything, the whole cosmos meets us. We have an expression in Ireland when we're saying goodbye to somebody. We say, Gonairi and Chukilat, may the road rise with you. May the road rise with you. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about being able to be so present and so still that we are aware of everything else working with us, that this universe is working in a synergistic way. But we can only experience it if we allow ourselves to step into that space of stillness, the heart space, whatever way you want to describe it, the flow state. There's so many ways and so many wonderful ways of expressing it, but it's allowing us to be whole enough to experience all of these coincidences, etc. I know I'm quite interested because I work so much in India. I can't say I'm an expert, but I know a little bit about the koshas, these different sheaths. Maybe we could call them sheaths of consciousness, like filters. And one of the ones I've been really interested in, and where I feel synchronicities and coincidences come from, is what they call the wisdom body, Vij Nanamaya. And I'm not saying it properly because I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but let's just call it the wisdom body. So it's not the mind. It's like talking to you now. I have no idea what I'm going to say. I have, even if I had a plan, the plan wouldn't be executed. So whatever needs to be said will come from this what we call the wisdom, the place of wisdom, the place of the heart. So it's not the mind, what we know to be the mind, analyzing everything, judging everything, planning everything, thinking that this little I, me, my entity, the AD, can actually plan or make anything happen, like without the without everything else. I can't do anything. It's this awareness that It's all working together. And when we can sort of tune into that, I feel it can happen when we're in that deeper space, not so much in that sort of logical, analytical, judgmental mind space.
It's a
So
very it's more essential than I realized before we started talking today, Adi. It's part of education, or what you're talking about. This is education. Educate means leading from. Uh, ex duco or ducere from the Latin. It's leading from the darkness into the light is a way of saying it, into the light of your own being. So you're able to become more who you are and not be so distracted by everything. And this is your passion, and you're living it. And the fun thing, I'll call it fun because I like that. I like to play. And one of the things about play is it is fun and educational. And that's the idea of play. And you have a playful element to you in you, and because that's how you find out things. And you're with a bunch of kids too, so what are you going to do? You're going to have to, they got it in them too. And you play, you find, you get to this idea of uniqueness. Unique. This is now what we are having right now is unique. This is not going to happen again. What you and I are doing is unique. And I like to play with how you describe distraction getting you nowhere, but then you take the word in English, nowhere, and then break it down and you get to now here. So
yeah,
you can go from way out to nothing to what you do is try to bring it to now here when you're in the circle. But you live this way. You've been able to say you might call it guided. Um, it may feel like that. And sometimes it is being guided, but it's also allowing yourself to move with what's right for you in the moment, including what you're about to say, and teaching kids and learning yourself. I mean, you got to teach to learn, and you're learning a lot yourself from doing all of this. So you become, and I keep emphasizing this, a model for other people, the kids, but other people too, in your enthusiastic, heart-rendering way of expressing your experience of being in the now with other people and just with yourself. There it was for me, right there. That was uh, a moment right then when I said it. And I broke it because we're being recorded here. But that moment was like I felt a spark of connection with you.
it's in the silence,
It's in the silence.
in the
What
silence. Yeah,
what you might call the liminal space too. It's a uh, space between the words, space between the breath, a space between us.
yeah. It's always in that space, and that's why it's so hard to talk about all of this because the words don't quite convey.
No, they don't. But what they do, and that's what you've done, is they carry the feeling when they're the right words, and you're allowing yourself to let it come out, which is what you were doing when you were in the circle. I was there with you. I could and the do re mi and the going around three different groups uh, and and making the sound and just building a crescendo so that they're all doing it and you hitting the high note at the top. It's almost like I can see on top of the pyramid in the middle, in that middle circle, just kind of like holding the high note, actually literally as well as figuratively. And then that energy, I could almost see how then the clouds would part and the sun would say, "Hi, Adi, how you doing?"
I mean, yeah, That's how it feels. Mm, yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful thing you're doing, Adi, and I'm glad I got a look at you in Joan Walton's uh, interview with you and other people. There was Science and Medical Network, where people can go to see it. The Science and Medical Network has so much educational stuff, and you and Joan Walton and others, Laurel Waterman, were talking about just what we're talking about here. And it's nice for me to know that, and this is more rational and stuff, that where you are with them, that they have something like what you're talking about with the circle, the stones, and the it's being present. It's being present with other people in the presence, in the present, being present with the present. Well, I just call it the gift of the present.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a it's a gift when you get to the present, and that's what you're kind of offer your students and other people.
That's it. And it's like the being present is sort of, it feels like it's and this is just my way of describing it. It may not be the
Yeah,
way other people would see it, but it feels um being present. So that's like attention to this moment. So that's one aspect of it. But then there's presence itself. And maybe that's when you've got all of these other elements coming together. So it could be um, the sense of a group of people all being present. They're contributing to the presence. It could also be the particular space we're in, and it doesn't need to be nature. I mean, you and I are fortunate to have access to great natural places, but it doesn't necessarily, and I'm always talking about nature, but actually, there's been a lot of research done on this as well, is that you don't necessarily have to have access to nature in your locality, but you can bring nature in. So you could take a concrete building and you can, maybe bring in some plants or make sure that the windows are open or spend time looking at the sky at night. There are things we can do, but the idea is that the space, wherever it is, whether it's in a stone fort, in the forest, or in an ugly building, we can still have that space become a participant in this presence. So and I think it's what you said earlier. It's not something that's static. It's not something like, oh, we have this place, it's full of presence. It's something that is being worked on, worked with. It's an ongoing, it's a process. All of this is a process. And it's all happening now. It's a continuous, it's an ongoing, call it play or dance, but it's all these elements are so important. And of course, intention, the
At-
intention, so no matter where we are, bringing back
attention to
intention
intent,
and yeah,
attention to intention, attention to intention, intention to intention. Well,
yeah,
I'm there was a, I don't know, maybe you've heard of him, guy Dylan Thomas or something.
yeah.
He comes from around near where you are, someplace.
He's
Um,
Welsh, could be wrong, but
I think he's Welsh, but it's somewhere around there. Um, the force that through the green stem blooms the flower is the force that is the evolutionary force of the universe. And what we keep forgetting is that we're spiraling. This little Earth thing is spiraling through this big blackness along with all these other planets and the sun. So there's this constant motion, and we're in motion. So the only constant is change was one of my favorite ideas because it keeps changing, and being able to find the way it's changing and be part of it in a way that is intentional and I don't have the words for it either, but I just had a feel for it. I can't say it either, but I guess with with my not being able to find any words now too, we're getting to the end of our time together also, and you got some things you have to do, and I have the feeling that you had a pleasant distraction from
I
some of the
did. I did.
things.
Thank you.
You're
And I
welcome.
know I didn't speak about India or the project there and the project that I'm doing with the consciousness education group is actually linked to there, but that's maybe for
That's
another
maybe for another
time.
time. I mean, I'm just gradually getting to trying to get to this consciousness education
Yeah.
thing because it's so important for the future of humanity, if there's going to be a future, to be able to get out. And you said it so nicely earlier, you can't just keep doing things right, doing the farming right and doing the helping other people right and just doing it in a kind of a mechanical way. It's got to be done with the feeling of being part of something greater, and that is that we're part of each other and the others are part of us. And I like to suggest that we are all part of a collective human organism that's very distracted right now by all these different things, just like each one of us. And we need to get ourselves more coherent and more organized. And what you're doing is helping what needs to happen and for kids all over the place is to start becoming more coherent with their own sense of self. And authentic is a word to use that way so that they can connect the way you're helping them connect. So I admire what you're doing. And I can leave you. I'll ask you one more thing, but I leave you. I hope you run into a leprechaun one of these days. There's one on your shoulder. Right on top. I have one on the top of my head every once in a while, and I
There
can
you
even though I can't see it, I can see it. It's like when I'm in the forest, it gets on there. It's kind of like pointing like this. It's a funny little being that shows up sometimes. So have some last words for us, Adi, and then we'll have to stop.
Yeah, so I suppose one last thing I'd like to say is we've been talking about, these different approaches to education, and one of the things that is really close to my heart is that these approaches to education need to be accessible to everyone, to all children. I mean, the the young people we're working with right now are mostly they're from Europe, they're European. Um, and they're lucky enough to be able to come and do a program in another country. It's an experience that not all young people have. And I feel that the work that and I hope that many others will join me, is to make this accessible to young people. For example, in India, if we bring in the idea of consciousness, um, and that everything is consciousness, then that's a game changer for them, because we work with extremely uh, marginalized children and young people who are malnourished, they are illiterate, very poor numeracy skills. And if you introduce the idea of consciousness, not talking about it directly, but experiencing it and showing that as we expand our own consciousness, that things in the material world can also change. And so even though we're born into a particular caste or class, somewhere in that hierarchy, maybe the lower rungs of the hierarchical model, that things are not fixed. By learning to work with all of this directly, whether it's through breath work, meditation practice, whether it's through embodied movements practices, there's so many ways of working. Um, and one of the projects that we're doing in India is called the hand that moves the mustard seeds. This idea that there's something bigger moving all of this. And the mustard seed is a great metaphor even for consciousness, because it starts off as being so small, that sort of, you could even call it the divine spark, and then through practice, working together, in our case, working with nature, it can expand. And we've worked with even with young children, and we've got them working with the imaginal, sharing their dreams with us. And the beautiful thing is that we actually have fields of mustard there, so it's all very tangible to them. So they're watching the mustard grow, and they're feeling the spark growing within them as well. And it's quite a it's a very rewarding project. So beautiful to work with children and young people in this way, and um, have them, I suppose, envision a different kind of future. And that future obviously emerges from the present moment, but being present together and feeling that spark within us grow. And again, it's all done in a very fun, playful way. So this is my mission, is to make this accessible to all young people, not just privileged ones who have access to
Beautiful.
all.
That's beautiful. And I'm more with you. I kind of knew this is a good idea, but now you are so very, very articulate, Adi, about this, as well as passionate and clear. And it's the message you have is extremely important for humanity to learn. So thank you very, very much for what you're doing.
Thank you for having me and for allowing me to talk about this, and it means a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you.